He finally had to take time out.
My drinking overtook, you know, my whole thing. You know, I felt like almost Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, you know.
On stage, Malcolm had tried to keep it together, but off stage he was falling apart. In the middle of the band's Blow Up Your Video tour, Malcolm had enough.
So I had a talk with Angus, and he said, how would you feel if I could at least take a break?
I think he was worried about me, that he'd be disappointing me. But he turned and he said, look, I'm gonna, you know, I'll have to stop, you know, because if I continue, he felt he'd become a casualty, you know.
And he was a big enough man to turn around and say, you know, I can't cope with this.
So I was letting people down. I was making people get worried about me. I wasn't brain dead, but I was just physically and mentally screwed by the alcohol.
The brothers recruited their nephew Stevie to play for Malcolm while he fought his addictions. In time, and with the help of Alcoholics Anonymous, Malcolm was once again able to pick up his guitar.
That did it. That got me right. It put me on track, you know. It woke me right up.
God knows what he went through. But whatever it was, he fixed himself better than ever, you know.
Yeah, so that's about all I can say about that, you know. It was a detour, a bad detour I had to take, you know. And just hoping I never go that way again.
Malcolm had changed his destiny, but death had not yet finished haunting the band. On January 18th, 1991, a concert in Salt Lake City, Utah, turned into a nightmare.
Terrible nights. Never forget as long as I live.
The concert had barely begun when tragedy struck. Seating was not reserved, so that night as the doors opened, 13,000 eager fans rushed forward to claim seats near the front of the stage. 3 fans were trampled to death in the stampede. At the time, the band didn't know the full story.
And I going, well, there's one dead, and that was it. I just sat there and tears. Angus was just beside himself. I could see he was welling up. Mal had tried to hold it together as best he could.
They wanted to stop the show, but were advised to play on to avoid further chaos. When they later learned that 3 fans had been crushed to death, they were heartbroken. The event was so painful that Malcolm still refuses to talk about it.
I think what hurt most is the next day in the newspapers, they were saying band played on, well, kids died about them, and they had a photograph of me with a smile on my face. It was just journalistic opportunity that just went beyond the bounds of decency. You know, I was just so angry and hurt.
To make matters worse, the band faced lawsuits claiming that they were responsible.
The lawsuits were coming flying at us from every angle. It was a feeding frenzy, really.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's your name on the ticket, you know, and it's your name that they see.
By spring 1991, the court dismissed AC/DC from a wrongful death lawsuit brought by the father of one of the 3 teenagers killed in Salt Lake City. For AC/DC, the 1990s, like the 80s, had begun on a dark note. Hopefully, their luck would change in the decade to come. After the tragic events of Salt Lake City, it was to the former Soviet Union that AC/DC would turn to raise the band's spirits. In September 1991, Russian President Boris Yeltsin invited AC/DC to headline a free concert for young Russians who'd helped to block a communist coup.
When we arrived in Moscow, getting off the plane, there was just so many people. It was like they just stopped work.
It was supposed to be initially in Red Square, and I think they gauged with the reaction they were getting from people arriving, or however they were gauging how many people they were going to get, they moved it, and it ended up in an airstrip. on the suburbs of Moscow. It was phenomenal.
On the night of September 28th, 1991, over 1 million Russians rocked with AC/DC at a former Soviet airbase.
That was a great gig. I remember walking on there and just, my heart was beating, you know. I mean, it was just forever. Forever.
The band left Moscow with a renewed sense of optimism. For AC/DC, it had been a long, hard journey from Australia to Russia. 17 years of heartbreak and hit records. And with the new millennium, AC/DC released their 17th album, Stiff Upper Lip.
I was born with a stiff.
Album, in as much as Malcolm and Angus had everything ready to go. So we basically just had to come along and perform as best we could. Really, really pleased with it.
Angus and Malcolm Young still remain the heart and soul of the band that they've led and loved for more than a quarter of a century.
There's no doubt about it. It's the sound of the band. It's the combination of the guitars. We can read each other's minds.
Angus and Malcolm may look older these days, but their rock and roll philosophy hasn't changed since they first formed their dream band back in the 70s.
We're ready to rock and roll. We just wanted to be a good rock and roll band, and that's it. It's just the simplicity of it, and that's all we can do, and stick to what you do best. That's what we do best,
And that's what I enjoy best, getting on a stage and, plucking my guitar.
They say we keep doing the same stuff, but rock and roll's been around since the 50s. I mean, real rock and roll. There's a lot of pretenders out there.
Nothing's ever changed when you get on that stage. We're all still exactly the same guys we were, right back at day one.
The guys just write the songs as they write them, and we play them as we play them. And, that's how it comes out.
I think Angus said it best, and he says, we've got 5 average guys, and you put them together, and you make this lovely thing called AC/DC.
These 5 guys, Malcolm and Angus Young, Phil Rudd, Cliff Williams, and Brian Johnson, plan to keep making this lovely thing called AC/DC for a long, long time.
We feel we're timeless, and trends come and go, and we'll still be running through the trends, and sometimes we may do really well, sometimes maybe not so well, but it won't never change. And, there's nowhere for us to go, believe me.